Fire sermon is the third largest section of the wasteland, and its subject is sex outside the marriage. The title of this section is taken from Buddha's fire sermon, and fire is the symbol of lust or passion. The title is taken from a sermon given by Buddha, in which he encourages his disciple followers to give up earthly passions symbolized by fire and seek freedom from earthly desire and other things. The season is still winter when the poem opens with a view of the river bank. A gusty wind is sweeping the whole area, and the narrator recalls the time when the water of the river was not sullied with cardboard boxes, empty bottle, silk handkerchiefs, and lot of other things like condom. And the poem opens with the delights of Spencer's sweet Prometheus. The poem opens with the song of the Thames daughter. Other times and places they mingle with the present throughout the poem, essentially as a technique conforming to an ideal unity of culture. So Prometheus is a song. It's a generic term for a song-like poem, and which provides an ironic contrast to a number of debased, satirized encounters, sexual encounters in the modern time. And the section changes to a desolate riverside scene. Rats and garbage surround the speaker, who's fishing in the dull canal. So the sweet river is transformed into a dull canal in the modern time, and the fisherman is busy fishing, because fish is the symbol of life. But when you cannot fish in the dull canal, rats and garbage surround the speaker who is fishing, and repeatedly they are reminded of the sweetness of the river Thames by citing the refrain, "Sweet Thames run softly till I end my song." The speaker is then invited by proposition by a Sumerian merchant, G.G. Nidus, for a weekend at a hotel, a grand hotel in London, meant for such sexual encounter, homosexual encounter. The guest house district of the Isle of Dog is also seen in the distance, and the wanderer facing the Thames naturally hears at his back the sound of horns, fitting into the 20th century winter festival, so that the view of the river bank, which was the meeting points of lover and celebration of marriage, it has become now a rendezvous for the casual, or the people or the lovers looking for casual relationship or casual ties. The river Thames is broken, the last symbols of leave clutch and sink into the wet bank. The tent, which was put up for the occasion of wedding, has shattered, and there are few last leaves left on the bank, otherwise completely denuded. So it's a barren scene in the winter time. The wind crosses the brown land, a gusty wind is blowing, and wind is a symbol of change in T.S. poetry. The nymphs are departed, a sad even. The sea fairies presiding over the wedding ceremony, they have departed, and they are replaced by modern nymphs called prostitutes. Sweet Thames run softly till I end my song, wherever bear no empty bottles, sandwich paper, silk handkerchief, cardboard boxes, cigarette, and other testimonies of summer night. So we are reminded indirectly of the time when there were no bottles in the river, and the river was completely free from the modern waste and the litter. But now it's sullied and polluted. It's become a dull canal. This change has come from past too. So the very source of life, river and water, they have suffered from a change which is unbelievable. The river or the other testimony of neither nymphs are departed. There is a repetition of the phrase, those deities presiding over the ceremony of marriage have disappeared. And their friends, the loitering heirs of the city director. This is the reference to the modern name, the prostitute, and their lovers. They are heirs of city directors and the neo-rich, looking for a casual relationship, of also departed, leaving no addresses, because they are not interested in permanent relationship. By the water of Lima I sat down and wept. Narrator sits down by the side of a lake in Geneva to weep over the sad lot of modern humanity. Sweet Thames run softly till I end my song, sweet Thames run softly, for I speak not loud or long. But at my back in a cold blast I hear the rattle of the bone and a chuckle spread from ear to ear. So the narrator overhears the sinister chuckle from the lover, because sweet smile of the lovers have been replaced by the chuckle, the sinister sound of the debased lovers. So we have now a comment on the line from J. Even the river, normally a symbol of renewal of life, has been reduced to a dull canal. The ugliness stands in implicit contrast to the sweet train of Spencer's time. The dismal current of modern Thames in winter not only lacks limbs or the mementos of Spencer's maiden cropping the flower for the wedding occasion, but is empty even of their modern parallel, suggestive of the summer and love. It's full of the mechanized product, cigarette, cardboard boxes, the pollutants to be found along with condom. and heirs of city director suggest themselves to the dreamer's mind as the natural male counterparts of modern day nymphs. And the speaker then proclaims he is Typist, a figure from classical mythology, who has both male and female features, the first transgender narrator in the poem. The poet wants to use the experience of both the sexes, so he has brought on the scene a narrator who is blind but he is blessed by a prophetic vision. He is not quite able to escape a tree thing, though, for he is forced to sit and watch the sordid sexual deeds of the modern time, like the Sibyl in the epigraph of the poem. So he is a narrator, a watcher who has seen and who suffered the experience of such banal sexual encounters. At noon in the city, the one-eyed merchant becomes incarnate called Mr. Eugenides, a Sumerian merchant whose origin and physical appearance he appears to be unshaven, with a pocket full of currant, possibly some custom form. Eugenides' prototype was a real person whom T.S. Eliot knew in his life. And it's a place in the heart of London, a famous hotel, Metropolitan in Brighton, is the meeting point of the homosexual lover. The note on the current CIF London may be taken as a polite explanation of the technicality which he was performing when he was a clerk in London bank called Lloyd Bank. And it's again the example of London becoming a commercial city, a chartered Thames, and London becoming Blake's London of that short lake, where the city is chartered, Thames is chartered, and everything is commercialized. The actual sexual encounter that takes place in this section of the poem are infinitely barren and fruitless. Eugenides proposes a homosexual ties which by its very nature thwarts fertility. Winter Noon, in which the ever mutating first person narrator receives an ambiguous invitation from the Sumerian merchant who asks him to spend a weekend in the Cannon Street Hotel. These are the contemporary scene haunted by the mass product gadgets and objects representing industrial landscape which render the present mechanical, jarring, lifeless and disenchanting. So the dreams of man called city, man-made city, has become a degraded center of commercial activities. It's become a commercial hub, a business center. It's no more a dreamland for the inhabitant. On the river bank, the gas house by the well canal where the rats scurry over the moldy bone is a picture of modern wasteland. So the scene setting is continued in these lines. A rat crept softly through the vegetation, dragging its clammy belly on the bank. Rats swimming through garbage are seen. There are the scavenger wandering over the garbage. And the poet compares himself to a scavenger who collected the garbage from various classical literature to compose this poem called The Wasteland. But I was fishing in the dull canal on a winter evening round behind the gas house, musing upon my father's death before him, white body making the low damp ground. We are given a reference to the Tempest, Shakespeare's play, when Ferdinand was grieving on the loss of his father. And there is another view of the naked body reclining on the bank, busy copulating. The bone cast in a little grotto, dry garret rattled by rats foot only year to year. It's a view of degraded city life. Rats, garbage, and naked body are visible on the bank of the river, and one can guess what they are doing on the wet bank. The speaker of these lines is fishing, reminding us of the fisher king myth that is so central to the wasteland. He is musing upon his brother's shipwreck and his father's death, which could partly be an allusion to Shakespeare's Tempest. The reference to rats conjure up the rat-infested trenches of the First World War. So rats seem to serve a variety of function as a poetic image. In the scene, Sweeney, a modern merchant in a dandy, in a fashionable appearance, comes to Mrs. Potter, a brothel owner. That's the next scene. And we can hear the sounds of honking of motor horn, which bring the Sweeney merchant to Mrs. Potter, who wash, and her daughter, who wash their feet in soda water. So soda water is a reference to some Australian drinking song of the day, but soda water is a sterilizing agent for the sexual diseases like AIDS. Sweeney to Mrs. Potter in the spring, on the moon shone bright on Mrs. Potter and her daughter. Perfect rhythm as ironical tone. Look at the rhyming of Potter and daughter. A poetic link is there, but it's sarcastic. This visit by Sweeney the merchant is having sexual connotation. It has a derogatory meaning. So he has come to seek the sexual favor from Mrs. Potter and her daughter. And on her daughter, they wash their feet in soda water. I gave you soda water is a sterilizing agent. Oh, is Oxadu. This is a French quotation of a children's song, which is tempting. Twit, twit, jug, 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 so rudely forced to do. Modern day passion leads to brutal violence symbolized by a single monosyllabic word, to from the last section, who not only violated phenomena but cut her tongue to silence her. So her voice in the form of nightingale has become an empty jug, jug, jug in the modern time. The reference to soda water is taken from an Australian drinking song of the day and again takes us back to the prostitute, but T.C. once again cleverly juxtaposes the scene of contemporary decadence where sex as lots is deeper meaning with an allusion to earlier poem by John Dale. The poem is called Parliaments of Beer and it's an anecdote and incident involving Dinah, the beautiful goddess, and Acton trying to peep the nakedness of the goddess, and she took a savage revenge upon this Tom who was peeping through the hole. She sets his own hounds upon him and they tear apart his body. So watching a chaste maiden in the past when she was naked was such an offense which needed a brutal action. That's the story here. Acton was torn apart by his own hounds because he dared, peeping Tom like to gaze at the naked body of the beautiful goddess Diana while she was bathing. In this classical myth, even gaining sexual gratification from the sight of a beautiful chaste woman, a divine one, was enough to get you executed in the most horrified, violent manner. He ends the particular passage with quotation from French poet Verlaine and his poem Parsifal, and all the voices of the children singing the copula or the song round the tower, such is found in the palaces. Parsifal was in some version the Arthurian knight or legend, the one who was looking for grain to redeem the wasteland, and he must represent the purity, must forego all sexual temptation and keep himself pure if he is to find the way. But even if he is finding it difficult, the seductive song of the children is even enough to distract him from his journey, his task. So two references, one to Day's Parliament of Bee and second to the Parsifal, Verlaine's Parsifal, serve to deepen the meaning of this passage, this line. Sex was considered to be a mystic union, a sacramental act in the past, but it has become a moment of surrender to the call of passion in the modern time. So lust or sex has lost its meaning and has become a momentary pleasure in the modern time. The ghostly commercial city is visited by UG riders. That was the episode we have read earlier. So we will continue with some comments from the critics on the two scenes, a series of shifting scenes which fade in and out of each other like a cinemascope, modern degradation which the poem seeks at once to portray and to overcome. This is the sexual encounter between a jaded type and a young carbuncular. That is the third episode. First, UG riders proposing a weekend at the Metropolitan Hotel. The second, the visit of Sweeney to Mrs. Porter and her daughter. The third banal episode is the Typist girl episode in the heart of the section. So their rise is prefaced by elliptical views of the city, the polluted Thames, its bands, the bustle of traffic, the invocation of death and decay, and by a brief passage under the brown fog. The violent crime committed by Tulu upon his sister-in-law Philomena raises further question about the depiction of sex and violence in the wasteland, and another way in which the sanctity of marriage and sex as a part of matrimony can be lost sight of. So, we continue with the reading of the text, and this is one of the famous episodes called Typist girl episode. Women in 1920 was seeking freedom. She was not happy about her status as an angel about the house. So it was the beginning of the origin of the feminist movement. And they were looking for liberty. And typist and a typewriter became the new role for the women, and the typewriter became the tool of economic independence. But typist has got another meaning. She is the type of the modern women who is a seductress, a violated woman who seeks casual affair to pass time. And she is frequently compared to a human engine or a taxi, a term for prostitution. In this section, the typist and her lovers are equally barren in their way, and though reproduction is at least theoretically possible for the two, living in so impoverished manner that she does not even own a bed, removes this possibility. It's a remote possibility that they can have a productive, a fruitful liaison or relationship. At the violet arm and the eyes in the back turn upward from the desk when the human engine waits like a taxi throbbing waiting. So it's a view of the mechanized world where human beings are debased as robo, as machine, working from 9 to 5 with no leisure, there is no life. So the synapse, eyes and back, turn upwards from the desk. The woman rises from the desk where she has been working the whole day. And she is compared to a human engine, weight like a taxi throbbing, eye direction to blind throbbing between two lines. So narrator is watching the scene, peeping through the hole like Tom. Old man with the wrinkled female breast can see at the violet hour, the evening hour, that stride homeward and bring the sailor home from sea. In the past, the sailor returned to his home for relaxation, for peace, and for communication. But in the present, the role is replaced by a typist. That's the reversal of expectation. It's not that sailor is returning to home, it's a typist coming home in a London skyscraper where she owned a small pocket flat. And the word repeated phrase is the violet art, which comes from Sappho's poetry, the first female writer. So she comes homeward and brings the sailor from the sea. The typist home at tea time, clears the breakfast, lights her store and lays out foods in tin. That's the view of the apartment in which she is living. When she leaves, she will light the stove, prepare the breakfast, and lays the food in the tin. Out of the window parallel spread her drying combination touched by sun last week. An example of peeping Tom is watching, and it's an example of fetish or male gaze. Her underwears are hanging on a wire. They are touched by sun's last rays. To look at the sexual connotation, even sun's touch is given sexual overtone. On divan are piled at night her bed stockings, slippers, kamasu and shade. The poet has produced a musical effect by bringing together her paraphernalia in the form of stockings, slippers, camisole, and look at the hissing sounds. I Teresia's old man with wrinkled drugs perceived the scene and foretold the rest. So narrator, after having watched the scene, narrates the rest of the event. I too awaited the expected guest. He, the young carbuncular, arrives on the scene. So the woman was possibly looking for this lover in the evening, and he is on the scene. He was expected in the evening, and he is come onto the scene. A small house agent clerk. He is carbuncular, he's got pimple on his face, and he is a clerk, an agent clerk, with one bold stare, one of the low on the whom assurance sits as a silk hat on dreadful millionaire. His assurance is compared to a hat, a mechanical business activity which is going to happen, has been indicated by the use of business terminology. So, dreadful millionaire is generally a term for a business tycoon who has made money or fortune from the textile mills. So, the person assurance is compared to the hat. The time is now propitious and the guest, the meal is ended and she is bored and tired. So the woman is fatigued, bored and tired, and she is indifferent. But the lover welcomes the indifferent because he is happy with this or her attitude. Flushed and decided, he assaults at once. It's a brutal attack. It's a copulation, an example of dehumanized violence. His vanity requires no response and makes a welcome of indifference. I, Tarishus, have four suffered all enacted on the same divan or bed. Narrator recalls such sordid episodes from the past. He had been witness to a number of such violent acts. I, who have sat by Typist below the wall and walked among the lowest of the dead. The poet relates these encounters, sordid encounters, with the low life, because they cannot afford a permanent human relationship. So they indulge in such sordid, such meaningless, futile relationships. Bestows one final parting kiss and gropes his way, finding the stair unlit. The encounter is over, the meeting is ended. He plants the final kiss and quietly descends, retreats from the unlit stair. He gropes in the dark, he disappears in the dark as hastily as he meets the women for love or love making. So it is a hurried affair which is concluded, and we are given a view of the women who has suffered this assault. She's alone now in the room, and we are given, the narrator describes her state of mind. At Sappho's violent art, the depersonalized, disconnected eyes and back, transfixed on a pin by Elias' character use of definite article, the human engine turn up from the desk in the counting house. Since Typist has suffered all in the Ophidian copulation of the house agent's clerk and the typist, their after hours activities are his too, and are a projection of the dead world of the city. Even imagery here is mercantile, is business-like, Enacted on the same divan or bed, etc., is the focus upon the sexual act. The symbolic failure of sexual relation is utterly wasted. The middle period of T-series work, including Wasteland, confronts the obstacle directly.